Now, next is we start with our next topic in the networks part, which is again a very, very practical based thing which we see in our, around us. That is the topologies. So one we did was type of the network. I again repeat, please read the question in the exam carefully. What is it asking based on the scenario given? Is it saying what kind of network is being established in the given scenario? What kind of topology do you think is being established? What kind of device do you think this topology will need? Okay. Everywhere the answer is not internet or WAN or LAN. Okay. You have to read the question and accordingly answer. Very, very important. Fine. Now, basic general meaning of the term topology. The general meaning of the word topology is setup. Basic setup of the systems. That's how we define it. But the point to be noted here is that the setup is not always the way it should be in terms of the diagram which I showed you. Okay, it is also talking in terms of how the communication happens. The setup of how the communication will take place. Okay, imagine a class situation. If Jaskaran has to speak to Rodranil, one setup or one thing which is allowed in the classes, or the way we follow, the rule is that Jaskaran tells it to me, I convey it to Rodranil. No other way they can communicate. That's one category of topology. This is star topology. Through a central device, they communicate. Okay. Other setup could be Rodranil talks to Jaskaran directly and convey. Rodranil wants to say something to Jisha, and Jaskaran is in between. So, they are in like a one-to-one connection pe hai. Not one-to-one, one machine connected to two computers. Okay. That setup is another kind of a topology, which I called as a ring. So Rodranil tells it to Jaskaran, Jaskaran tells it to Jisha. And that is how they communicate. Jisha tells it back to Jaskaran, the acknowledgement, and Jaskaran gives it back to Rodranil. Okay, that is one setup. This setups ko define karta hai topology, because every setup has an advantage, has a disadvantage, has an applicability where I can use this particular setup. Har jagah pe har setup nahi chalta. Okay. Then you have another setup which says, like again, imagine a class situation and there's somebody from the prefect who comes to the door and makes an announcement. On Friday, Stuti is supposed to report to room number 302 at 9 o'clock. Now everybody gets disturbed. Sabne suna, sabne dekha, acha, oh, it's for Stuti. Okay, koi baat nahi. But there's a congestion happening. There's a problem happening for everybody. Everybody gets disturbed. This kind of a setup is again a bus setup. That you leave the data on the line, and the person who has to picks it up. So Stuti only hears. But otherwise, what should I do? The person should go to Stuti and announce. Others ko nahi sunai dena chahiye in the network. Right? So these are certain setups I'm talking about. And based on that, my topologies are defined. Right? The first one being, and the most common being. Okay, before I move on to that, I come to these three terms. I've discussed two out of that. One is left out. Nodes. So any machine which is on the network and it is part of the network, I don't call it a PC anymore, a laptop anymore, a desktop anymore, a computer anymore. I start calling it a node. Node ka matlab hai, I'm talking about a network, a machine in a network. Okay. I also call it a workstation, can call it, but node is a more common term. So if you are drawing a diagram in the exam, which is being asked, topologies ka, so you have to mark them, label them. You don't write PC, laptop, desktop. No, you will write, or computer. You will write node. Otherwise, wo marks kat jayega aapka. Okay. So any machine on the network is my node. Server. Services provide karta hai wo to the client in terms of resources. I've discussed the example in detail there. Services, everything. Fine. Generally, if I'm talking about a network of LAN, I just call it a server. If I'm talking about the global network, which is my internet, I call it a web server. Okay, if it is a LAN, I generally don't call it a web server, I call it a server only. The third important term being used is NIC, the network interface unit. It's actually the network interface card. When I come to the devices, I'll show you the diagram of that, जो कि machine में inbuilt है और उसी का जो port है, that is where I attach my LAN cable, the RJ45 cable. If you come to the lab once, I'll show you. Okay, so that is what is enabling me to establish the network. Okay, so if I have a machine and I don't have an NIC, it cannot connect to the network at all. Everything is there around it, but then NIC is not there. Okay, so it's like a device which is used for connection. And it has a unique address in the net, which provides that unique address to the machine. These are the three terms which I should know. Coming to the topologies, few terms I just now said: star, bus, ring. Rest of the two we have to discuss. So let's move on to the first one, which is my star. Now, if I kind of elaborate and maximize it, you'll see that in the center, it has a device. It is not a computer. Fine, it is a device. You might have another server attached to this device, and hence then I'll have a client server architecture also in this topology. But here it is a device. Okay, not essentially that it has to be in this shape. The point is that A connects to B, A talks to my B through the device. A will tell it to the device and device will give it to B. A will not communicate to B directly. If this is the setup of my network, then it is my star topology. And in the lab, in our both the labs, we have the star topology. It has got a lot of advantages also, but a few disadvantages too. That is why advantage ज़्यादा है, इसीलिए we are using it in the school environment. Fine. Basic definition is central node say we are connecting all the other nodes. The central node is generally the connecting device, not always a computer. So यहाँ पे don't make a computer. Okay. It has to be the central device, connecting device, which I call as a hub or a switch. Now, advantage, disadvantage. Advantage, disadvantage. Let's see the diagram and try to work on it. And the diagram could be drawn as central device and the machines like these, connected like these. It is not a star. It should not look like a star. ऐसा कोई मतलब ऐसा नहीं है. Fine. So I have all my machines lined up here, nodes lined up here, and ultimately I need wire from every machine which should go to the connecting device. अगर आपका मशीन यहाँ भी पड़ा है, आपका मशीन यहाँ भी पड़ा है लैब में कहीं पे, so you'll have to drag the wire and get it to this. Maybe how much length it has. You have to do that. Fine. So that is like, that gives me one advantage and one disadvantage. First disadvantage is that if the central device doesn't work, then network doesn't work at all. Though my machines are all fine. They have the NIC, they have the system working, they are proper workstations, they can connect to the network, सब कुछ ठीक है. But this device is not working. So they can't communicate. So complete dependency of this network of this topology is on the central node. Okay. And one advantage is that it is very, very simple to establish. Very simple. And central point of diagnosis. नेटवर्क नहीं चल रहा, सबसे पहले जाके हब को चेक करो. हब का ही स्विच ऑन नहीं है, हब का ही वायर कट गया है या हब खराब हो गया है. So first thing check is the hub or the switch, whatever you use. Right? The central control and problem diagnosis, that is one advantage. And central control is the disadvantage only. Central node dependency. Because if that doesn't work, then the whole network doesn't work. One advantage, one device per connection. अब child can also set up this connection. एक wire लेके RJ45 का केबल इधर लगाओ और एक ले जाके उधर लगाओ. Fine. The protocols also are very simple. I'll talk about the protocols more in detail little later. Now, problem is that one more, which is a very, very significant and practical problem, that is too many wires. Now, if these are the lines में machines लगी हुई हैं, ठीक है? This fellow to talk to this person, इस तरीके से जो हमारा लैब का सेटअप है, in a V shape, U shape, sorry, and you have the machine setup लगा हुआ है. Now, somebody who has to communicate, like this is my Sudhi's machine, this is Rosalind's machine. He has to communicate A to B. और यहाँ पे मेरा वो है hub or the switch. The data goes to this point and then it comes to B. Imagine how much wire you are unnecessarily connecting. And it has to be neatly connected. अब लैब के अंदर से आपको वायर जाती भी नहीं दिखती, सब कुछ वो पास साइड से ले जाके यहाँ पे there's a jungle of wires, but very systematically organized. Otherwise you cannot make out कौन से वायर कौन सी सिस्टम का है. Labeling being done, one इसका 1 यहाँ पे लिखा होगा और यहाँ पे 1 लिखा होगा. So I know that this is the wire for that system. इस तरीके से it is being established. Simple है, but very long cable length unnecessarily at times. These two people are sitting adjacent to each other. They can talk directly, but they have to talk through the web server, through the node. So the wire has to be established like this. Fine. So that is my biggest disadvantage of the star topology. Though it has got a huge advantage also. Fault diagnosis and fault rectification becomes a very important thing. जहाँ पे you have got 40 machines connected. If your setup is not simple, then fault diagnosis becomes very, very difficult. Okay. And setting up the connection also at times. But यहाँ पे long cable length, if you can manage that, then this becomes very simple and easy to work on with. Then comes the next one, which is bus or linear. Again, see the diagram carefully. These two terminals at the end of the wire, which is called as the backbone. ये जो central wire है, that's called as the backbone. And these two are the terminators. Terminators are important, otherwise sounds odd, but the signal will overflow. Okay, so the terminator is required. जहाँ पे आप end करोगे network को. ठीक है? Easy to extend because just you can attach a machine, hook करना. Like ऊपर से electric wire जा रहा है, आपने hook कर लिया उसको. So it's very easy to expand, which is not the case in the case of star. Star का extension means यहाँ पे अगर कोई नया machine install हुआ है, पूरी wire ले जाके वहां तक you have to attach. So it is difficult. But here the attaching is very, very easy. And anyways, this way, that way you can attach. Supports bi-directional movement. That is also very, very important. Okay, star, maybe you go here and come back from here through the same wire. Bi-directional movement is there. But here also, why is it important? I'll tell you that in the next topology. Bi-directional means this fellow can send the data to this place and this fellow can send the data via the same wire in the ulta direction also. That completes the communication. He's sent and he's going to send the acknowledgement. That completes the communication. So this particular setup supports a bi-directional movement, which is very, very important. Similarly, star also supports it. Okay. Now, what happens in the problems and the advantages in this? Advantage one is that, what do you think is the advantage? Give me two advantages. Think in terms of star, you'll be able to find out. I said in star, it's very difficult because long cable length. So one advantage here is shorter length of cable. Second disadvantage of star, adding extra nodes is dependency. And central node dependency. Okay, 2 points is given there. Both the things are an advantage here. Okay, so bus VC has got advantages. Short cable length, simple wiring layout or architecture, easy to extend. Fault diagnosis, fault isolation is difficult. If your transfer is not there, तो आपको हर point को check करना पड़ेगा कहाँ से कहाँ के transfer है, बीच में से wire खराब. Sometimes you know the rat eats the wire. और कहीं से कट गया or something happens. So it's a diagnosis of the fault. Isolation, which part of the network is not working, वहां पे जाके देखो कौन से wire में कहाँ पे. And generally these wires are Like nowadays we put it in pipes and it's not open. So finding out the fault becomes difficult. Okay. And then you have a longer network, repeaters might be required. How does repeater help? Again, we talk, it repeats the signal. Amplification जैसे हम कहते हैं, amplifier लगा दिया, उसने signal को boost कर दिया. So that is the purpose of my repeater. Coming to the third topology, ring. So now here becomes the fact that Stuti talks to Rodranil directly, Rodranil talks to Jisha directly. Right? Now Stuti wants to talk to Jisha via Rodranil, he will talk. She will talk, sorry. If Rodranil is absent, doesn't work, then Stuti cannot convey to Jisha. Why? Because it is unidirectional. Stuti has to go via this. And the acknowledgement has to come via the fourth person here. Maybe just one. Or something else. It's like, so if this is not working, data ja hi nahi sakta. This is not working, acknowledgement aa nahi sakta. So you are stuck. That is the biggest disadvantage of ring. Advantage is also there. Very less wire. Direct communication is happening. No going to the central node and coming. No central node dependency, direct communication. But the biggest problem is unidirectional hone ki wajah se one node doesn't work. The whole network stops. Which is not happening in the case of bus. It's not happening in the case of star. Okay, so these are the points also they give you to identify the network. They'll say identify the network. So point number 1, central node dependency, star. Point number 2, unidirectional flow of information, ring. Number 3, all nodes are connected to each other. That's mesh. Okay, so you have to remember these features. Okay, we move on further and see the point-wise issues. Advantage, short cable length, shortest rather, बिल्कुल direct है, तो shortest cable length, कोई wiring closer नहीं चाहिए, जैसा अभी I'll show you the way you have in the lab, both the labs, a big, big box, जो wiring closer है. Suitable for optical fiber, you will get high speed, everything, and it's also suitable for, I have not mentioned that point, a small network. Why a small network? Because if one is not working, possibilities are less. Everybody's 4 people are connected, 4 people, every day coming to office, and it's working. All the machines are on and they are able to communicate. है ना? So smaller हो, जितना बड़ा होगा फिर उसके अंदर problem ज़्यादा है. More number of machines, so more number of machines can be not working, and hence more number of days when the network will not work. Right? Disadvantage, node failure causes network failure. That's the biggest disadvantage. And reconfiguring the network is also difficult because it's unidirectional. Setup में difficulty होता है. Right? Another one is those are the 3 basic, you can say the primary ones. Now when I start combining, becomes my tree network, also called as hybrid network because it's a combination of 2 topologies. And you can see it here that multiple stars. This is a star. This is a star. This is a star. Okay. And this line is my backbone, which I'm doing it for the bus. Right? So bus pe, the nodes which I was showing you, instead of the nodes, I've attached my connecting device. One hub, another hub, another hub. Backbone cable pe wo attached hai. And through that hub, then you have multiple setups. Multiple computers connected. Nodes connected. Okay. This kind of, and why do you call it a tree? Because it looks like a tree. This is my trunk, main trunk, and these are my branches. That is why they call it a tree. Fine. Not difficult to remember. Tree because the setup looks like a tree. Right? A combination of your bus and star. Very, very practically applicable. I'll give you the example in our school. Every floor, rather, not every floor. I mean, every floor have their own setups. And across the floors, I have connected through my routers. And hence, I make a hybrid kind of a setup. तो लैब में लैन है, प्रिंसिपल ऑफिस में लैन है, लाइब्रेरी में लैन है, and then those LANs are connected through one common cable, which is the backbone. Backbone cable, you can see I've marked it here, and that backbone cable is giving me the setup look like a bus. This is my backbone cable, and these are those boxes are my terminators. Please make the terminators, mark them the terminators. That is how you should be marking, labeling your diagram. Very important. Don't just make it. You will not get marks. These are my nodes. This is the central node, which is the hub. Then this is my backbone cable. You might make a server also connected to it. Depends upon what question he's asking. More very, very practically. Advantages, easy to extend. एक hub. Why? Because easy to extend कहाँ से आता है? Because it's a bus. तो उस वाले बैकबोन केबल पे लगा दो डिवाइस, और डिवाइस से आप अटैच करो जितना अटैच करना है. 40 मशीन उस डिवाइस पर अटैच कर दो, हो गया. एक 40 मशीन का आपने नेटवर्क एक्सटेंड कर दिया अपने एग्जिस्टिंग नेटवर्क पे. सो दैट मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ डिफरेंस. Again, fault isolation is easy. Why? Because one setup not working, तो only that gets affected. That you can isolate and see कि इसमें problem है. उन 40 computers में नहीं communicate हो पा रहा. You know, lab में communication नहीं है, but library में communication है. और principal office में communication है. So isolate कर सकते हो आप. Fault isolation. You can check out and isolate, and then check that part. Okay. Disadvantage again, that backbone cable if is not working, then the pre-setup will not work. Individual hubs will work. Individual stars will work. But जो आपने hybrid setup create किया, that will not work because central node will not work if the central backbone is not there. So you have advantage, disadvantage with every setup. Depends upon what you want to use and what is applicable in your setup. Okay. The next one being mesh is like this. Every computer is connected to all other machines. Right? So one setup not working, you might use the other path to send the data. Direct नहीं है, indirect path से भेजो. Give me one major disadvantage of this kind of a setup. Advantage से हमें पता चल जाता है. Multiple routes. यहाँ से CP जाना है, ITO वाला रूट बंद है, निजामुद्दीन ब्रिज से चले जाओ, नोएडा जाना है सपोज, है ना. सो मल्टीपल रूट्स का ये एडवांटेज है. डिसएडवांटेज क्या है in terms of wires? Quickly, this answer should come from you. Basic disadvantage.
Long wires.
Too many, not long, too many. Long I can reduce by, putting the machines together. But too many. How many wires to manage? And number of machines increase or wires बढ़ जाएंगे, है ना? So everywhere it is not possible. Only it is possible when you have a small setup. 40 computers को हम ऐसे नहीं connect कर सकते. Not possible. Too many wires. Okay, that is the basic disadvantage. And the basic advantage is multiple ways of sending the data. Internet पे तो ऐसे हो ही रहा है. That's why we call it a web. World Wide Web means these are my web servers, and you have a jar of connections through different web servers also I can communicate. So internet ka setup is my free topology. Sorry, mesh topology. But I don't call it a topology there because it's on the WAN. These topologies are mainly for LAN, not for WAN. WAN में as such कोई topology नहीं है. It's that World Wide Web or a client server architecture working. Simple. No other technology works there. Fine. Advantage, disadvantage we have done of this. If you find the topic interesting, there's a YouTube connection. You can see that. They have explained the thing very well. It helps. Quickly moving down to the protocols now. Common protocols, HTTP. Please add on, there's this thing very common nowadays, HTTPS. Fine. Now, most common, protocol being used on your internet on the World Wide Web. That is my HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That is letting you jump from one server to the other server and easily work on hyperlink text. Hyperlink text का जो काम है, that is happening through HTTP. Okay. Now, this is a point and this is a place where I would like to tell you about one very, very important concept. That is Difference between my World Wide Web and internet. World Wide Web, hypertext work, and internet. Okay. Very, very significant question from exam point of view. It has been asked multiple times in various ways, and it will be there in every paper. I guarantee that, in some way or the other. ठीक है? अब इस चीज को समझने के लिए I give you one example. You all have heard or worked somewhere, sometime using TeamViewer. Have you worked in a TeamViewer situation? Say yes or no, then I'll give some other example. Have you worked? See, TeamViewer is a software which I install at my place, and supposedly Karan Bhaiya installed at his place on his PC. Okay. Now I have an issue on my machine. Right. So I start my TeamViewer. Karan Bhaiya starts his TeamViewer. He gives me the IP address coming on his machine. I connect through TeamViewer using that IP address, and then he will be able to access my machine. Access rights are differently given. So basic access right is that he will be able to access my machine for everything. He can install softwares. He can check what is happening in my machine. He can run softwares here. Everything he can do on my system. Is it a LAN? Is it a LAN?
No, ma'am.
Is it HTTP working there?
No, ma'am.
But is it internet?
Yes.
Yeah, it is internet. It is not World Wide Web also. मैं कोई World Wide Web server use नहीं कर रही हूँ. Multiple web servers. I'm using a basic client server technology. My that system is behaving as my server. कह सकते हो. And I'm the client, and I'm asking him to give me services. Basic connection between two systems. No World Wide Web, no HTTP, but internet. When I'm accessing a Google website and I'm saying, okay, give me the explanation of protocols, it gives me a list of links. And those links are taking me to different locations. अलग-अलग server के अलग-अलग sites पे लेके जा रहा है. That's World Wide Web. I'm accessing that through HTTP. But internet, so my conclusion of my story is that internet is a bigger term, okay, which is being used for various applications, not only for hypertexting. Okay, it is used for various applications. Zoom I'm doing through internet, but no hypertext transfers, not use of any HTTP as such. Okay, I'll get to the point again because I just have 10 more minutes for this Zoom session. So let me complete this part. Have you got that idea? So HTTP is meant for one kind of work. My internet is the base I'm using. World Wide Web is part of that one application of internet. World Wide Web is not only the internet thing. Internet has got a lot of other applications, a lot of other things which you can do through internet. Okay. So we have to remember and understand that. Protocols are many. These are one. Basic internet protocol is a TCP/IP. Transmission control protocol is TCP and IP is internet protocol. A talking to B through internet. Through internet. इस बीच में web servers हैं, बहुत कुछ है. ठीक है. Basic protocol set being used is TCP/IP. Now, what is a protocol? The rules which define, which govern the network. That's the static definition. But if I understand it in terms of general terms, I would say the programs, the softwares, the applications which are controlling my network transfer. Ultimately, they are only defining the rules. ऐसा कर सकते हो, ऐसा नहीं कर सकते हो. This protocol will allow you to do this. This protocol will not allow you to do this. Okay. So these are my programs only. But they define the rules of my network. Hence, I call them protocol. Like school protocol. School protocol says you have to attend school from 7:50 onwards. That's a school protocol rule. Okay. So English term meaning only. English meaning of protocol is rule. Similarly. Fine. So when A wants to transfer to B through internet, the basic set of protocol being used is TCP/IP. As such, in a network environment, thousands of protocols are being used. Different applications के लिए email का अलग protocol है, chat का अलग protocol है, अलग अलग एप्लीकेशंस का, ब्लॉग्स के लिए, इसके लिए, उसके लिए अलग अलग प्रोटोकॉल्स यूज हो रहे हैं, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग के लिए एंड ऑल दैट, बट basic is the TCP/IP. Fine. Quickly talking about it. Two main steps. You are trying to transfer data, चाहे वॉइस एप्लीकेशन, वॉइस डेटा है, चाहे टेक्स्ट डेटा है, चाहे ग्राफिक्स है, whatever it is, on the internet you're trying to transfer. The basic two things which a transfer should have on the internet, that is, I should be able to package my data well, जो मुझे भेजना है, okay? And second, I have to route it well. I have to tell him from where to go and reach where, and that transfer should happen. So packaging and creating the data in a format that it can be transferred, which includes a lot of steps. Encryption हम करते हैं data को, encryption key attach करते हैं. Lot of steps are there in this also. But basic, if I tell you, one person who takes care of all these things is TCP. So one-liner is divides the data into various packets, attaches authentication, and tells him who's the destination and keeps the data ready. That's the work of TCP. IP is the person who is going to now take the data, decide on the route. Which route? All the packets go on route number 1, or 2 packets go on route number 1, 2 packets go on route number 2, 2 packets go on route number 3, and then they'll go and get combined there. So proper tagging कि ये इस मैसेज का रूट नंबर पैकेट नंबर 1 है, ये इस मैसेज का पैकेट नंबर 2 है, ये इस मैसेज का पैकेट नंबर 3 है. Otherwise, once it reaches the destination, it will get mingled up. आपको एक ईमेल में 2 और ईमेल्स का डेटा आ रहा होगा, ऐसा नहीं होता ना, है ना? So this fellow takes care of that. कहाँ से डेटा जाएगा, but ultimately they should be combined well. Okay, that's the purpose of IP. The network, internet protocol, basically network layer पे use होता है, internet protocol. Very, very important. Point-to-point protocol is also being used when I talk about this team viewer kind of a thing. That's my single point, one point to the other. PPP, point-to-point protocol is being used. Okay. Few more protocols which I have to know. FTP, file transfer protocol. Then you have SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol, being used for emails. Another protocol being used for emails, POP, post office protocol. I'll send you all the full forms and the names. ठीक है? FTP का example देने का I have little time. Mails के लिए तो I told you these are the two ones. Earlier it used to be a DOS based, a command based functionality, FTP. जिसमें I have to transfer files. See, it's only for transferring. I cannot talk otherwise. मैं इसमें voice calling नहीं कर सकती हूँ. मैं इसमें I can't do anything else. I cannot connect to the machine in order to access the files there. I can just upload and download. File transfer. Okay. If I want to go to Jaskaran's machine and execute my Python programs because Python is not installed on my machine, will FTP give me the file? No. Telnet. Telnet or things like आजकल आ गया है TeamViewer, that helps me to do remote login. So remote login का software कौन सा है, protocol कौन सा है? You have Telnet, you have TeamViewer. Simple uploading and downloading of files. Like I have made a website. I have taken say space from a web server. अब मुझे अपनी सारी फाइल, सारे images, सारे HTML files मुझे upload करना है. So I'll use my FTP protocol. Now say मैम कहाँ मिलेगा FTP protocol? It's not that. It is nowadays use the Windows version. Qt FTP करके है. Others are also there. I'm just giving one example. Fine. So that gives you the IP address of that machine. जहाँ पे तुमको सर्वर पे लोड करना है, उस IP एड्रेस पे आप लॉग इन करते हो and you upload all the files through one command. मुझे कोई साइट में चेंज करना है, हटाना है कोई डॉक्यूमेंट वहां से, कोई इमेज वहां से, तो डाउनलोड करके हटा दो and then again upload the new thing. तो ऐसा काम when I'm connecting and doing, I'm using internet, but I'm not using hypertext transfer protocol. Why? There are no hyperlinks involved here. Multiple servers, I'm not jumping. I'm always connected to my server only, जिसमें I am transferring data and downloading data or uploading data. ओके अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट वॉइस कनेक्शन के लिए है वॉइस ओवर आईपी. पिछले आई थिंक 3-4 टाइम से वॉइस ओवर आईपी का एक क्वेश्चन इज गारंटीड इन द एग्जाम पेपर. दिस प्रोटोकॉल voice over IP. They'll give a situation and they identify the protocol and the answer is voice over IP. Yeah, expand, full form. Of all these protocols, full forms is asked in the paper. Either any one of these. HTTP. HTTPS is basically the secure version. Another version of HTTP which they have launched. कि HTTPS अगर किसी साइट पे है तो you know it is a secured site. Have better security. In terms of hacking nahi hoga, virus attack nahi hoga, that is more secure. Okay, so these are the network protocols which we need to remember. Email ke liye SMTP POP, file transfer ke liye FTP, voice transfer over telephone lines, voice over IP, remote login, telnet, TeamViewer, point to point connectivity, EPP. Fine. Expansion can be asked. They give a situation or ask you to identify the protocol. Is it fine? That's about your second part, which is your topologies. Okay. I'm not going any further at this point because the next part is devices. If you read through, try to do the first worksheet and you're sure about the connections and everything in your mind, then I want to move to the devices. They're not difficult. Many devices I've discussed just now only. I have devices about, I've discussed about hub and switch. I'm using the terms, but I have not discussed the devices in detail, which I need to do. Can we meet again today evening? Can we do that?